it is important for us as administrators to act as team players, correct? Of course, we are team leading indirectly in some way or form, but the biggest thing is to be the team player that our people need us to be. And that means your resume may have 25 things that you're expected to do as a COO, but there is probably 25 more that I should be doing. And one of them is basically working on trust and trying to get to know my people as actual people instead of just somebody who is here trying to get a paycheck all day, every day.
Welcome to season 2 of the Ophthalmology Experience powered by Boost Patients. Today we're joined by Bansari Mehta, Chief Operating Officer of Dr. Black's Eye Associates. With a background in operations and data-driven decision-making, Bansari has successfully navigated cultural challenges and integrated innovative solutions to streamline workflows and enhance patient experiences. Bansari, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Guido. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I know we had a couple of reschedule and schedule things that we had to postpone this a couple times. But as we were saying right before we jumped onto this, the life of an ophthalmic administrator can sometimes be unpredictable, and we have to just go with the flow. And sometimes that means rescheduling and changing plans, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the norm, correct? You set up appointments and then you have to move things around because work life happens and something that's not on your resume is something you're chasing or trying to fix. And so it's just one of those things. But thank you again for accommodating. I know we've had a couple reschedules.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad to have you. And I know gotta just I know we're in the same circles, and I got a chance to quickly meet you at last ASOA. But did you did you go to I think I saw too you did some stuff at Academy recently. Is that
That is
right?
correct. Yes, yes. You talk about eyeballs. Eyeballs is truly my love. Um, I'm thinking about eyeballs all day, every day, and eyeballs is what it's going to be. But yes, I did see you for the first time, technically, in person at ASOA, and then Academy. I attended Academy a couple weeks back. So everything and anything eyeballs, I'm all for
Yeah.
it.
I think I'm gonna talk if you're okay with it, I'm gonna talk to my marketing team. That's gonna be one of our shirts. Eyeballs all day, every day.
Do it as long as I get credit for it and probably some sort of royalties. I'll take it.
Well, I don't know if you'll make a lot from the royalties from our selling it to our employees, but yeah, we'll work it out. So have you always been in I know you're very passionate about the eye business. Have you always been in this field?
No, I actually chanced upon eyeballs. My story is I'm actually a respiratory therapist. So I have been in healthcare since my late teens. I have worked in ORs, ERs, NICUs, ICUs, anything and everything that you can imagine, and I try to call it the first part of my career. So I've done patient side, worked in healthcare consulting. I've also done research as well, clinical trials and research. But management is something that I truly keep close to my heart. And I do feel that I tend to be a slightly better manager than any of all of the other, that's what I think, all of the other occupations that I probably must have dabbled in, basically.
Mhm.
So I just chanced upon it. I had heard that a general practitioner was looking for somebody else's clinic as far as a medical practice administrator goes. And I started off in a retina only clinic. Believe it or not, I had no idea what retina was. I wasn't probably even sure if there were so many parts to the eyeballs like there really are, correct? And so I remember reading before my interview, I did like a quick boot camp on retinas, and I was like, okay, what does retina stand for? Blah, 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 all of that stuff and more. And then I went through an extensive interview process with my previous practice that I was with. And that is how I was initiated into eyeballs. And from
Okay,
retina, I moved to multi-specialty comprehensive, which is where I
okay,
am at Dr. Black's Eye Associates
Dr.
right
Black.
now.
And then how long is that? Like how long have you been When did you start in retina, and then you moved over
Yes.
to Dr. Black?
11 years in eyeballs, believe it
Years.
or not, and I still feel
Okay.
like I don't know everything. I should know everything.
No, I'm almost 19, almost 20. I've been in it.
Wow,
You learn every day, for sure.
that's correct.
And then, sorry, make sure I'm clear. You said respiratory therapist?
Yes,
Is that what you
I
said?
am a respiratory therapist. That's the
Okay.
first part of my career. I did the adrenaline action-packed TV life, if you may.
Okay.
And then I got my master's in health administration. So, I started moving towards management after that. But between that, I was working in clinical trials and research.
Mhm.
And I also did some healthcare consulting as well for some companies.
And I like to understand people's backgrounds because I think what we have done obviously shapes us in ways that we may not fully understand. So what do you think from your previous or your experience, or even not previous, but you said you're currently a respiratory therapist. How do you bring that into ophthalmology?
Right. And so in my previous life, I was a respiratory therapist. I don't practice as one
Uh-huh.
anymore because I'm only ophthalmology focused now. Um, I think, healthcare is where I am supposed to be. I have truly enjoyed the bedside and the patient care aspect of being a respiratory therapist in my previous career. In my current career, I do tend to interact with patients, but I also have the exposure that comes with, the business side of making things happen. I
Mhm.
truly enjoy strategy. I love mergers and acquisitions. I'm always well read about what's happening in the world of business. What are multinationals doing? How are they functioning? How are they talking? So a lot of that healthcare aspect can be translated, bedside can be translated to business as well. Gives you a much better understanding of where the patients are coming from, what the expectations are. Because personalization, you can never lose that. Doesn't matter it's bedside or if it's the business aspect of it, correct? I truly believe that it is important to keep the personalization aspect of any field that you work in healthcare because it's easy to get lost behind spreadsheets or sit at a desk, work all day, every day, and say that you have a big, ginormous, fancy title. But to be able to live that out as a human being yourself and also project the same thing onto your staff and patients, I think is a completely different dynamic overall, you know?
Yeah.
So the similarities, yes, they definitely do exist, and I do think a lot of the knowledge is transferable to a very great extent.
Mhm. Well, maybe even at the basic level, you help with breathing and understanding. I don't know exactly to put it in those terms, but it's like sometimes it's just the simple things, right? Just the ability to
Correct.
just step back, breathe, connect.
Right. And
Um,
we work
goes
in
a lot.
healthcare for a reason, correct?
Yeah.
We work in healthcare for a reason. It's not like, okay, we are trying to chase the money or this or that. There's a lot of expectations that come with just about any healthcare position, but service is at the core of our existence. Doesn't matter you're a physician or an administrator.
Right. And I think 11 years is a long time, but it's also short enough to where you're close enough to the transition part of the journey. So maybe you can remember some of the struggles or some of the victories that you've had when it comes to integrating into a retina practice, which is different than maybe what you do now, or different focuses and depending on the specialty and how the practice runs. So tell me more about Dr. Black's Eye Associates. Where is that?
So we are based in Southern Indiana, Jeffersonville to be precise. Our mothership is in
Okay.
Jeffersonville.
Okay.
We have a presence in Southern Indiana, Northern Kentucky. We've been
Uh-huh.
around for 41 years at this point. So the brand has a name, it has value, it has weight in this area, basically. We've got 9 locations, 26 MDODs. We also have a surgery center and 250 staff approximately, LASIK suite as well.
Okay. Yeah. So that you're big enough to understand challenges of running a larger size practice for sure. And especially one with history in the market, which is
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with this position. Of course, with any position, correct? But
sure.
especially when you're a brand new administrator into a practice, like I made the move approximately 4.5 years back. So just having to build everything up again, also in an area where the brand and the image is so strong, there are certain expectations that you're expected to live up to.
Right. And so 4.5 years in your current role, right? You said
That's correct.
so. That's yeah. I want to ask you about that because I think there are administrators who are taking leadership roles in a different practice or a different role. One of the biggest things you have to take on is making sure that the vision of the the leadership or the ownership team or the leadership positions, that there's some alignment in what, I guess, what your vision is to run the business side of the practice. Can you talk a little bit about when you took your role? How did you go about finding alignment with the owners or leadership in that way?
So call me a product of, if you remember, COVID happened and there was this silent resignation, or the massive resignation, like they called it. People were changing and moving jobs. My change came about end of 2020, basically. So if you were to truly ask me about the interview process, and my current bosses do joke about this from time to time, I went in super prepared. I looked up the practice. I asked every possible questions that I could to the people who were facilitating this conversation in any which way or form. I wanted to learn everything about the practice before I walked into the practice. It was important for me to find that right fit. I worked in a smaller practice before, and this practice is probably 3 or 4 times bigger than my previous practice in various different ways. And so it was important for me to ask the right questions. And like I said, my bosses do kid about it because they were supposed to interview me, but I came with a list of questions and I was asking those questions, and they felt they were being interviewed, of course, very nicely, professionally. But I knew what exactly I wanted to hear and see from the hour, or 8 hours actually. I spent 8 hours interviewing back to back to back. They flew me in, did all of that stuff and more. So it was important for me to figure out that whatever I could see, having met these legacy employees, the ones that have been here for 35, 40 years, as long as the practice has been here, conversations with them. I was trying to read between lines, um, but I was very keen on finding that right fit. There's a saying, don't pick your job, pick your boss, if that makes sense. Because if you're looking for the right career, if you're looking for the right fit, it is important or you at least try to find out who it is that you're trying to work for. And that to me was 10 on 10 right off the bat in the interview, which I can be slightly critical. And so for them to get a 10 on 10 was a very big deal. And the rest is history. It did not take me too long to make a decision if I wanted to move to this practice and see what exactly was waiting for me on the other side. And I do need to add one more thing. I think it's important. Transparency is important. I came in with certain strengths, but I also had my weaknesses at that point in time. I still do. But I had to make sure I spelled my weaknesses out so that I was not just simply sitting there or wasting somebody's time if this is not something they wanted, or if they wanted support in a specific area. I am willing to learn. I am the most curious person. I like to say that myself. I'm the most curious person you'll find. If I don't know something, I'll say it out loud, but I will go and read about it or be like, okay, I read a book on it or I heard a podcast. So I was open and transparent right off the bat what my strengths and weaknesses were. And the practice actually told me, they held my hand and were like, okay, we will work with you on these weaknesses because we know that you may have 50% or 70% of the job. The other 30%, we are more than happy to train you or work with you on. So that again was important for me to know that I'm going to be working with the right people.
Yeah, you said several things there that I want to highlight that I think are super important. So when you came in and you met the team, it sounds like from a culture perspective of who they were, like your boss, as you say, it was a fit 100%. It's a 10 out of 10 fit, which is very critical. It's almost like matchmaking, right? You want to make sure that your style is aligns with the style of the physician and or the ownership board or whatever that is. And then the other thing you said too, which I think is super important, is your approach in terms of the interview. And likely, I'm guessing you continued that in when you came into the role, which is asking questions. So what I've seen is too often is that when a new leader comes into a practice, it depends. Doesn't really matter the level, but I've seen some, like for example, in my case, I've seen some regional managers that we hired externally seem like a great fit, but instead of asking questions, they're more talking about what is it you're going to learn from me, and without really having a true perspective of understanding what are the challenges of the practice, what can I learn from you? So I think that's really critical to a leader coming into an organization. I think it also depends. That was also going to determine how you're received by the people that you're going to be leading. Start asking questions. What can I learn from you? What works for
Mhm.
you? And I'm sure that you agree. You probably took that into your role when you came in.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, you know, we all have our growing pains when it comes to management, correct? A lot of things we may have picked up on the job, but there are some things nobody taught us. We just had to learn our lessons so that we could be better administrators and better managers overall. I truly believe, and I actually talk about this with the allied health professionals, just overall in ophthalmology. I talk about this. If you are walking into a job, don't be that person who walks into the job and the next day everything changes. Because first and foremost, any kind of management changes, people are afraid, correct? Like, is my PTO going to be cut? Am I going to be held more responsible about being at work at a certain time? I have daycare issues. Will this person help me with daycare issues? So
Mhm.
those are the kind of questions going through people's minds, correct? Change is hard. Change is hard on everybody. And the last thing you typically want to do as an administrator, a brand new administrator walking into a practice is walk in and change everything right off the bat. So I actually have a theory about this. You want to be, of course, not the smartest person in the room right off the bat, especially when you have a new job or if you've transitioned into a job. You want to watch, you want to observe, you want to take notes, and you want to be humble at the same time. That's all should be your focus. Try and understand internally what the processes are, building those trustworthy relationships, being able to win your people over, being authentic, being genuine, being the person you're supposed to be behind the exact role or the title that's supposed to be. Like, who are you as a person? Do you like animals? Do you have pets? What's your favorite food, your favorite cereal? That kind of ice breaking for anywhere between 6 to 1 year, 6 months to a year, I think is extremely important. Like, people have to get to know you as a person. They are not interested in the fact that you have 10 degrees behind your name or you've done some major things in ophthalmology and you are the boss. What they want to know is, are you okay to, are you okay and
Do I
open to
trust
their
you?
ideas? Correct. What about the trust levels? Like, they are interested in that relationship building. So I truly believe going slowly, that'd be the way to do it.
Some of us, you said, don't be the smartest person in the room. I tell my wife it's really hard to not be the smartest person. And then she slaps me and says, "Yeah, get out of your head."
No wonder.
Uh,
I mean, so many hats you wear, Guido. I mean, look at
no,
us.
no,
You're chatting on your podcast. That's a
I
big
like the
deal,
joke.
you
I
know?
like the joke. Uh, but I think too that I want to get your perspective when it comes to, now you've gone into this journey, you've started to gain trust. You're building a relationship with your physician or physician owner board or whatever it is. Then when does the strategy and when do you start and how do you align? And maybe you can say from your personal perspective of when you look towards certain strategic initiatives, or should we buy this piece of equipment? How do you align, and what does that decision process with your physician look like, so that and how does it work well?
Correct. So I think the response to this question is probably going to be very practice specific. And the reason why I say that, if you are in a smaller practice, it's more of like a horizontal structure, correct? You have the physician, you may have a practice manager who manages everybody underneath. that practice manager. In my organization, there's a hierarchy right now where I'm at. So I think it truly begins with understanding what the internal policies, procedures, expectations are. Asking
Mhm,
right off the bat, what are the expectations? Like, what are you expecting me to do when it comes to, say, for example, equipment? Do we have a procedure for that? Or are we just simply firing off of our emotions and we just decide to buy a $250,000 piece of equipment and nobody's asking any questions? So if you are that administrator, looking outside in, if you have established yourself as a trustworthy team player, I think it's important to start looking at processes and situations like that, where you can dive deeper. You can try and understand if certain processes are broken. Because what happens is a lot of times broken things become our norm because we may not question, comment, or raise any concerns related to something that has been going on for decades, correct? Oh, that's
mhm.
just how we do it. The shrugging of the shoulders, that's just how we do it. That's just how we're going to do it. So, as an administrator, I think it's our job to truly, professionally, challenge situations like these, especially, when it comes to buying equipment. What is your policy? What is your procedure? I'm sure your practice has a different procedure compared to mine. For me, it's like we do have a maintenance director who is included or is a part of these conversations where physicians are like, oh my God, I like this piece of equipment. So I try to direct and redirect it to the right person because this person has the right expertise and the background. It's not just a title. He has been with us for a very long time. He used to work as a technician, worked his way up to be the maintenance manager, basically. So he knows about the equipment. You can't just simply be like, yeah, I want to buy it, so I'm going to buy it. He goes out there, tries and makes sure that we have cost effective products available to basically compare before we make any big decisions. So it is truly a collaborative process where I am right now, which may not be the case in smaller practices, but then the smaller practices can still achieve the same goal if some structure is provided to situations and conversations like these.
Quick break brought to you by Boost Patients. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a physician, a practice admin, or maybe someone on the marketing team, and you really have a singular goal. You want new patients, more consults, higher surgery volume. And oftentimes, when you want that, you think immediately about marketing, spending more on marketing, investing more in marketing. Maybe, but probably not. We've mystery shopped over 600 practices, and there's one commonality with all of them. They're not very effective and not very good at patient follow up. So before you invest more money in marketing and more into that investment, you really need to understand how your practice is following up with new patients. So go to boostpatients.com, fill out the contact us form, and let me know that you want us to mystery shop your practice. We'll mystery shop it. We'll document how your practice follows up with your new patient lanes, and we'll share that information with you. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, and I think what you just said kind of highlights an earlier point, which is when you're having that process of figuring out if it's the right fit for the administrator or the practice when you're interviewing, you should ask the question, what is the decision making process?
Oh, that's a
Right.
great one. Yeah,
Right. Not that I need to be in control of everything, but I just want to understand when we are looking at new equipment or whatever, what does that look
right.
like? Just so that it's clear and we can, know how we're going to function together. Because I feel like I'm sure you feel the same way sometimes too, but like a professional redirector. You said redirector because whenever I'm sure they come back from academy and this rep sold them on this. Oh, we got to have it. We got to have it. Okay, hold on. We need to run to performance. Let's understand the investment. Let's understand the return. Let's understand the patient outcome benefit, all of it
Correct.
before just jump into it because they get sold on these sexy new things. And it's a great part of ophthalmology. We're always looking for the next
Oh,
greatest thing.
yes.
And new technology is the norm in our industry.
Yes,
So sometimes it's
absolutely.
a challenge too, just to keep up
Yeah,
with everything that's new that's
yeah.
coming out.
Fortunately, I would like to say that in my practice, my physician owners tend to be very mindful about decisions like these. There's always thought processes put into, do we really need this, or is this something a year down the line we need to consider? So, knock on wood, at least ever since I've moved to this practice, I haven't seen any uh, rash decisions when it comes to equipment. So
Okay.
hopefully that
Oh, you're
continues.
lucky.
But you never
You're
know.
lucky.
Post COVID, things are different, and so people are
Yeah,
a lot more cautious. Practices are a lot more cautious about
I agree.
spending money just overall.
For sure. For sure. Um, and we've kind of talked about a bit about how an administrator comes in and successfully communicates with their physicians and how you start to approach the role. From your perspective, as you continue to go down that journey, what separates a good administrator from a truly exceptional administrator?
Yeah. Ooh, I have a long list. I have a very
Give your
long
top
list
three.
of I think top 3, I would say humility since I've said it, don't let the title get to your head.
Mhm.
Again, easier said than done, but if you are somebody coming outside in or even within the organization, there are certain expectations. Don't let the title dictate what you can or cannot do. At the same time, make sure that your people know you outside of your title too at the same time. You don't want to sit up high somewhere in your ivory tower and be shooting orders all day, every day. It is important for us as administrators to act as team players, correct? Of course, we are team leading indirectly in some way or form, but the biggest thing is to be the team player that our people need us to be. And that means your resume may have 25 things that you're expected to do as a COO, but there is probably 25 more that I should be doing. And one of them is basically working on trust and trying to get to know my people as actual people instead of just somebody who is here trying to get a paycheck all day, every day, you
Mhm.
know?
Right.
The second important aspect or a characteristic I would say to administrators is the ability to roll with the changes. Ophthalmology is so dynamic. I don't know about any other fields. I've worked in other fields, other specialties, but ophthalmology, there's change. Like you just said, there's new equipment, there's new things coming out all day, every day. If you are averse to change or if you're going to be resistant to change, I think that is one thing that truly separates good managers. Doesn't matter what level, mid levels, upper management, whatever that is. The ability to roll with the punches. You got to find out solutions. You got to figure it out. I think that attitude is important because it's very easy to sit here in this chair and be like, throw my hands up in the air as I don't know how to do this. I don't want to how to. Well, we got to figure it out. That's our job. Our job is to basically be the firefighters when it comes to things like these. I would say communication, expectations, laying your expectations, whether it's with physicians or staff members, the ability to take feedback back and forth. Hey, what can I do better as a manager? Or how can we do X, Y, and Z better? Or, hey, Dr. So and so, I tried to help you this way, but if there's a different way I need to go, I need some expectation set or some sort of clarity. So I think communication is definitely one of those things that are important for or distinguish a good
Or
administrator
yeah,
from
somebody
an
who's
excellent one.
extraordinary. Yeah, I agree with you.
Correct.
I think those 3 would be on my list too. I I
Right.
put I put the ability to effectively communicate
Correct.
and get people on board with you as one of my top, because at the end in the day, all of us have you can study the what the piece of equipment does. You can study different metrics of how to run your practice, and you can follow those to the T. But if you cannot communicate and get people behind you, and then also have people open and in the way that you use words,
Right.
then you're not going to be successful because
Correct.
you're not
Yeah.
distinguished at a level of where you're gaining that trust of the
Yeah.
organization in a leadership role.
Yeah. And I think overall character too, correct? Because we are being trusted with a lot. We're being trusted with the practice. We're being trusted with money. And it is important to be a good person. It's just overall, I think character definitely plays a big role because that character is also going to decide how are you with the employees? What about your empathy? What
Mhm.
about your ability to relate to people so that you're not just, again, sitting somewhere high up top in your ivory tower and shooting orders. I think it's important to come to employees as levels, whatever level they may be at. This is not what I'm talking about, just to meet them at the same point on the same table and communicate with them effectively so that, again, we then build up the trust and the credibility and everything else that we were just talking about. So
Yeah,
those are
be
my
the
top
boss.
3. Like I told you, I could give you 22, 25,
Yeah,
35
yeah,
more.
for sure. It sounds, I mean, it sounds like you are embody a lot of those qualities just from my impression of talking to you. But kind of like you said earlier, choose your boss. Just be the boss that you want,
Yeah.
right?
Actually, I have a better one for you.
Okay.
I don't know, I just made this up, but I truly believe that we learn a lot more from our bad bosses than we do from our good bosses.
Hmm.
How do you not want to be as a boss? And we've all, depending upon, I've had a mix of both and not trying to throw any of my bosses under the bus, but we all have had good or bad bosses. I like to believe that I learn more from my bad bosses, what I don't want to be like, what I don't want to come across as, or what are the things I need to be aware of, self awareness, so that I am not coming across a certain way. So I love to be that person in the room that's just sitting in a corner. And I am a very observant person. Like I can sit there and probably write books on everybody. But
Hmm.
that's just one of those traits that I have. And I'm always constantly taking notes, watching, observing what they said, how they said it, why they said it, what kind of pace, things like that, cadence, all of that stuff and more.
Yeah,
So I love watching and learning. Um, and that definitely applies to the bosses that who have not been the best.
sure. And I think we're saying, you're saying the same thing as me too. I haven't had many bosses, but one of my first was a mentor, and that's really what I enjoy and I try to be from my team is somebody who is really your advocate, not someone who is self-interested in what benefits them, but you're more an advocate, and that's what I had as a mentor. So that's what I try to be. So that's where I
Yeah.
was coming at it from that perspective.
Good for you. I've had to go out and seek mentors, and
Mhm.
it's one of, I have the best group of people around me who can tell me what I need to hear and how to do things and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'm happy for you. I've had to go out and look for mine.
Well, I'm glad that you're able to live that now for your people. It sounds like you're trying hard to
Yes,
do.
no, I'm in a great place right now, but it's the seeking, correct? The initial stages of your career when you are in your late teens, early 20s, you want to be seeking things. That's what I mean when I say that.
Yeah. I had a couple questions for you about just on the business side. So what are some things right now at the practice level or even at industry level that Dr. Black Eye Associates is either worried about or struggling with? And I know we all have very similar challenges in the industry, but what are some of the big ones that are really on your radar right now?
Right. This is a constant conversation. I'm sure a lot of other practices are also talking about it. The economic uncertainties associated with just the people, patients I'm talking about in general, the unknowns that are out there in the economy, in the world, basically, what does that mean for our practice? Not everything can be translated into numbers,
Hmm.
but are people projecting certain behaviors when it comes to spending money, whether it's in our optical, whether it's cataract surgery, elective in some cases, things like that, or anything else that you would offer as a side service in your practice. What does that mean to healthcare? Are people putting things on the back burner? Are they going somewhere else just because our services or prices may not be competitive? So we are trying to stay 2 steps ahead of everything that's happening in the world right now, but the world is constantly changing. So alluding to my second point, which is you have to be adaptable to change
Hmm.
as an administrator. Um, that's something, of course, that we are talking about right now. Are you talking about the same thing in your practice?
Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of my question too. Like, what are you seeing? Are you seeing
Yeah,
declines in elective procedures? Are you seeing, challenges with consumers with economic
right.
uncertainty that maybe aren't spending as much as they did? Because we're seeing kind of, and I don't, and I know that's also countries. area of the country specific, but I
Correct.
mean, there are
Yes.
some national trends as well. But so I was just curious, as you're like, what
Yeah.
kinds of like numbers are you seeing lately? Are you seeing more patients, less patients, higher
So
conversions, lower conversions?
absolutely. The conversions vary month over month, basically. So
Mhm,
there is a thing that we do in our practice, which surprisingly, every time I share with somebody, they're always like, "Oh my God, you have monthly meetings?" So we have monthly executive meetings, the practice owners, and a few of us gather around a table. We talk about, everything, financial things that have happened till date, or probably year over year, things like that. And
mhm,
we also talk about what exactly is happening in the practice, what is happening in the surgery center. So the constant conversations basically help us stay on top of changes. So right
mhm,
now we are in that super attentive mode where we are like watching our numbers like a hawk. You know, is
mhm.
it time to sound the alarm? Probably not, in our practice. Are we seeing dips and changes? Yes, we are. But again, is it time to sound the alarm? Thankfully, not yet. So the trends, yes, are definitely changing. We also hired, I would say, five physicians, two surgeons, three MDs, three ODs recently.
Uh-huh.
And all of that was calculated risk. It's not just because, the physicians were available and that's why we hired them. But what does that look like for us from a growth perspective, from strategy perspective, market share perspective? And how do we keep our physicians busy? So we are definitely centered and focused on our numbers right now to see where we stand.
Mhm,
And also, what do these projections mean for us down the line since we've made certain investments? We are looking to expand and grow a separate surgery center. We have one right now, but we are looking to build one. We've hired new physicians. We are also looking to see if there's certain market areas that we could potentially make headway in as well at the same time.
mhm.
So yes, the numbers are up and down. So I probably could not sit here and tell you that, I've seen consistent trends over the last 6 months, but there have been changes, but not big enough for us to basically sound the alarm yet. And I don't want to jinx it, nor do you want to as a practice. So hopefully it continues. But growth is constant. We have to keep up with the times or else we will perish.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think your approach in terms of having a monthly meeting is a good idea because it helps you be more proactive instead of reactive.
Right.
Now, do you change up how you're offering one of your service lines? Do you say, "Hey, there's this location or this region is underperforming. What's going on? Do we need to go in and offer more training? Do we need to have conversations with the provider about services they're offering? Do we need to look at new?" So that's I think a great idea to have those strategy sessions as long as it's good, productive.
Yeah,
There's not squabbling or because sometimes that's again back to the what's the decision making structure. You want to make sure that everyone's in alignment, and when
absolutely.
whatever those initiatives are going to be that you're going to focus on.
Right. And a lot of times in practices, there may be a need for, say, a third party consultant to come in and
Mhm,
first assess if truly the core team is on the same page or not. We do tend to rely on external resources every now and then, just so that we know that all of us are on the same page. We are headed in the same direction. If we are not, let's speak up and talk about why. And that's one thing about my practice that I'm in. The physician owners I work for, they want to know your perspective, right or wrong. They will listen to you. And once they listen to you, then of course the right or wrong can be decided down the line. But there is room to basically express yourself if you think about something a certain way. And then, of course, there's discussion and you go with majority or what you think is going to be right for the practice slash patient, depending upon the situation. So, clear communication, transparency, extremely important. And sometimes, as an administrator, if you are this is just FYI, since we're talking about brand new administrators. If you are left out of conversations or if you don't have a seat at the table, I think it may be well worth a conversation with your physician owners to basically sit them down and be like, hey, for me to do my job, for me to make sure that I am going to be the best administrator that you have ever had. I need to know the big picture. I need to know the full story because I can get lost in my day to day trying to put out all of these fires. And when I do put out those fires,
Mhm.
I don't find out what happens after I put out the fires, whether it's, oh my God, the pre-authorizations didn't go through today, or somebody called in sick and now we can only see 10 patients today because we are understaffed. So we get lost as administrators in putting out those fires, but
Mhm.
then we also forget that there's a much bigger picture. So, communicating effectively and letting your physician owners know that it is important to have you at the table, I think is extremely important in my opinion. In case if you don't have a seat at the table or if it's a smaller practice where not a lot of things are transparent.
It's funny. You must have been reading my mind because you answered the question that I was gonna get that I was gonna ask you. The last question was just, what is the advice for a new administrator coming into practice?
Yeah,
Which, yes, I agree what you're saying. You have to try to find your place and have a voice and have a seat at the table so that you can get in those strategic conversations and then make it so that you're an asset. Tell them, I'm gonna help. So I tell my team, make sure your providers know you're there to help make them successful
correct.
and make sure that they understand, yeah, okay, got it. And so we may not always agree, but know that my premise is I'm here to make you successful as much as I can do that. If you need a yes person, maybe I'm not the right person for you. If you want somebody to help you grow the practice, then maybe I can help you with that.
Right,
But that's my primary goal. So
right.
thanks for answering my question before I asked you.
No, absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely. And I think it differs, correct? Like I don't know if you've been with the same practice for 20 years, but at 20 years, your relationship with your physician owners is going to be very different compared to me at 4 or 5. Does that
yeah,
make sense? Or somebody who's just walking in at the same time too. I think it's a matter of time. I think it's a matter of proving yourself over and over again, making sure that expectations are clear. Because if your bosses are expecting you to be on top of certain tasks or certain understandings about the business, and if you are not, just because you don't have the clarity associated with it, or you're not sure if that's your area, if you're allowed to dabble, not dabble, I think that's where all things go wrong, correct? And I always say this to my physician owners. I'm like, I never ask you for anything. All I'm asking for is include me in conversations and discussions, like
right.
if I had to say that statement, or if I do have to remind them once in a while, because a lot of times conversations will happen in the hallways or up and down or whatever. But for the most part, I am a part of those conversations. But then, of course, sometimes the conversations have to happen. It's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Can you tell me what transpired? Or, hey, can you forward that email to me because I don't know what you're talking about? So 100% is
Yeah.
tough,
Mhm.
but I think we can get there.
When you've been with somebody so long, it's I'll tell you, it's like a family. Sometimes you love them, sometimes you hate them, sometimes but it's hard to imagine a reality without them. So that I can tell you from my perspective, that's how it feels.
And I mean, maybe your boss is
Um,
listening to this, Guido. I don't know.
yeah.
Good luck to you.
No, it's fun. I really enjoy what I do, and I think maybe the lasting piece that I would leave is that's I think for administrators, you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have tough days. Just know that going in, but as long as there's more good than bad, then you keep fighting for the good, and and you'll get there, and you can slowly get better. And what we do is not easy every day, but I think that with the right support and the right character, as you said, because just my conversation with you so far, and I have a good feel for people after doing many interviews and talking to many people and hitting some home runs and also striking out a few times in terms of bringing people, you start really gauging kind of a core of the person. So I think being, just having the right character, like you said, and having the right personality and approach can go a very long way. And if that's who you are at your core, or even if you're working to be that person, continue to do that and be successful wherever you go. Right.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Well said.
Yes. Yeah. Um, all right. Well, I think that's unless you had some other words of wisdom, sorry, I think we'll wrap up for today. I appreciate you really joining us and sharing your expertise, and I hope to get to know you more. And remind me at Academy. I think I saw on LinkedIn that you had presented. What did you present on?
That is correct. Although I have not updated my LinkedIn yet related to
Uh-huh.
Academy, but I did, yes. I had a handful of sessions, let's just say that, but I presented for double AOE, I did IJACAPO, I did double AOP and US as well. So
Okay.
I am
Well,
more than happy to, share my knowledge, whatever little knowledge I have, but these things help me understand our
and
profession a
collaborate.
lot better. Like,
Yes.
I'm self-talking right now as I'm reminding myself these are the things I can, as an administrator, probably do better. So
Yeah, I agree.
discussions are always fruitful. But yes,
Yeah, I look forward to collaborating with you more at meetings and other things. And yeah, thanks again, Basari.
absolutely. Thank you, Guido. Appreciate you.
I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank our listeners again for joining us today. If you want to keep up with the podcast and interesting conversations with our guests, don't forget to subscribe and please share it with your friends on social media. Another shout out to Boost Patients for producing the podcast. Boost helps ophthalmology practices get more new patients without spending a dime on marketing. You can learn more about them at their website, boostpatients.com, or check out the show notes. Hang in there, ophthalmology gurus. We'll get through this experience together. Have a great week.